We are doing Extra Life again this year, where you can mash buttons, roll dice, play games, and help kids along the way. I hope you'll be a part of that with us. Stick around after the video for more information. Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to part 15 of my bookshelf tour. We're getting now into some different territory that's not necessarily geek-oriented, but will give you some insight into my Bible study over the course of my life and the kinds of things that I'm thinking about and working through personally. So that's the kind of territory we're entering into now. I'm going to give myself 10 minutes on my clock and see how much I can get through starting right now. All right, so we're going to go through some Bibles first. First up is the Hebrew-Greek Key Study Bible, the New American Standard Translation, and this one is published by AMG, compiled and edited by Spiros Zodhiates. This is the first Bible that I ever bought with my own money, and I do like the translation. It's not necessarily like my go-to anymore, but this was recommended to me when I was in, like, I want to say high school or early college by one of the volunteers in our church, kind of like young adults and youth ministry, as a resource that I could use, and this would be pre-internet. Now it's much easier using blueletterbible.com or something like that. Still a great resource though, but that allows you as a layperson who doesn't know Greek and Hebrew to get much, much closer to the languages than you would be able to otherwise. All of the keywords that really affect the interpretation of a passage are underlined, and then they have a number that will take you back to a pretty extensive concordance and lexicon in the back that will help you dive into some of these words. They also have, like notations that indicate what the form of each verb is or noun and stuff like that. So you can dig really about as deep as you want to, aside from, getting into something like blueletterbible.org, which is going to get, even blueletterbible.org isn't necessarily going to give you all the same information as this. So I've found this to be a resource that I'll still now and then get out, if nothing else, just to compare what one lexicon says about a word, with what another lexicon says. So Hebrew-Greek Key Study Bible, Zodhiates is the compiler and editor, AMG Publishers, still a resource that I continue to come back to. Let's see here, next up is Zondervan's NIV Study Bible. This one is in pretty good condition. It hasn't seen a ton of use. There was a time shortly after Holly and I were married that I really was trying to figure out how can I have a more regular time of Bible study, throughout the week. And so I was trying to figure out what I needed to do to find my sweet spot that would keep me engaged, keep me interested, and it would also, not just connect with me intellectually, but would also connect with where I'm at in my day-to-day life, And so this was a Bible that I bought in an attempt to kind of figure out, maybe satisfy some of my intellectual curiosity about various issues in the Bible, and it does have some life applications, stuff too. But it's going to be more about giving background, historical background, cultural background, that kind of stuff, and maybe some different interpretational views now and then. But I would say it's still a very good default resource, the Zondervan NIV Study Bible. Now, the NIV is not my preferred translation these days, but as far as like all the notes and stuff like that, they're pretty good. Every once in a while, they'll kind of lean in a direction that I find to be not as persuasive as what some other resources will say on an issue, but I think as a default, it's not going to lead you into heresy, and it's widely available, widely respected, so it's a good starting point for anybody, I think, that wants to get a study Bible. NIV Study Bible by Zondervan, pretty good. Let's see, then we've got a New Living Translation Bible. This is the Life Application Study Bible from Tyndale, and this was around the same time. This one actually got a little bit more use. I got a few more wrinkled pages and some notes and stuff in here, but this was me trying to figure out, okay, how do I spend time in the Bible that's going to be relevant to my day-to-day experience and bring this old book into my life, and in a way that that will actually guide and help and bring me refreshment and actually give some wisdom, to help me navigate some of the messed up or frustrating aspects of existing, So this definitely got more use. One of the maps is coming out in the back and stuff. So the New Living Translation was, for a while, the translation I went to just because it was easy to read. And for a little while I was like, dang it, okay, I know it's not the most accurate translation by far. It's certainly better than the original, just straight up Living Translation. When they went to New Living Translation, they put more effort into making it, adhere to the original text. But it's still not going to be near as word for word as even the NIV, and certainly not as the NASB or the ESV. So, but I was just like, okay, fine, I don't have the intellectual fortitude or discipline or patience or whatever it takes to make my daily reading Bible one of the more technical and accurate ones. And so I went to this, and for a season that was really, really valuable. And so I would recommend that to anybody. If you just want, someone said once, what's the best translation? And the response someone offered is the one that you read, And, I would nitpick that statement a bit, but you know what? Sure. If it's just an issue of whether or not you're going to spend time in your Bible or not, then go with a translation like the New Living Translation. I wouldn't necessarily recommend all, like every paraphrase translation and stuff like that. But I think the New Living Translation is probably a good middle ground between readability and adherence to the original text. But I think certainly, it was important for me after I'd built a habit in Scripture with my time spent in the New Living Translation. There did come a time where I was like, now I want something that's going to adhere more closely to the original text. But still, for a season in my life, this was really valuable, and I would recommend it to a lot of other people too. Speaking of seasons of life, as a number of you know, I was a worship pastor for 2 years prior to launching Spirit Blood Productions in 2006, and during that time, I purchased for work and with the church's money, but they allowed me to keep this after I stepped down, this version of the New Living Translation, the Praise and Worship Study Bible. And man, this is a big honker for some reason. I don't know if it's the point size or something, but it's not the most portable thing in the world. It's a bit of a tome. And this one definitely has a lot of notes in it from when I was leading worship. There's also some study helps in here that are specifically relevant to spending time in worship and having spending time focusing on God, orienting your lives, not just singing worship and corporate worship, but just in general in your life, orienting yourself toward God. I think, oddly enough, in retrospect, a better praise and worship study Bible, for me, would just be a Bible that actually gets more into the text itself and in its grammatical and historical context, because the more I can learn about that, the more I can accurately apply things that are relevant to dedicating time and worship and your life in general to God. So, but still, this is, I keep this, every once in a while we'll have some nice, insights. Some of it's a little bit fluffy, the little notes that they'll have in here, but every once in a while there'll be some good insights that aren't necessarily in another study Bible that I have. I haven't pulled this out in a long time, though. It's honestly mostly on my bookshelf just for the memories. All right. And speaking of memories, this one definitely has some significant memories to me. This is the Holy Bible, New International Version. It's not a study Bible, doesn't really have anything but the usual, textual footnotes, very, very minimal. But this Bible I got as a gift for my 18th birthday from my parents. And when I got it and opened it up, I really had to hide my disappointment. I was bummed that my parents just got me a Bible. Yes, it's it's nice. I don't know if this is faux leather or real leather, but it was nicely bound, but I was just like, but this was the Bible or maybe it wasn't my 18th birthday. It must have been my 17th or 16th. I think it was my 16th birthday. But this is the Bible that I took a very important journey with. I decided one year in high school that I was going to read through the entire Bible. That was an important thing I realized that I needed to do. And so I used this Bible to read cover to cover over. It took me about a year to at least a school year to get through the whole thing. And along the way, I made notes of of every, just about every weird thing in the Bible that I could think of that was just struck me as weird. I was like, well, what's that about? Or is this a contradiction? Or did God make a mistake here? Or whatever. I was just filled and filled. If you've listened to my interview with Colin Moriarty on his podcast show Fireside Chats, which you can check the link below to go and check that out. I'd highly recommend it. I talk about that season of my life in that interview, and this is the Bible that was really with me on that journey as I was making notes and trying to figure this weird book out. The journey, you can see in sections of it falling out, and in a lot of underlining and notes and things like that. So this one, certainly not a book that I go back to, but I am thinking at some point that I might create a Bible that has wide margins that will just include a bunch of notes from previous Bibles that I've put notes in, and I can notate the notes so that I can say, like, okay, this was the date or the time of life, the year roughly that I made this note, and then have that maybe for my boys at some point to have, so they can flip through a Bible, a copy of the Bible that will show them a bit of their dad's journey. So that's why I keep hanging on to something like this. Let's see here. The last, no, I got 2 more Bibles. I'll cheat a little bit just so we can get through my Bible section here, even though we're past 10 minutes. This is a wide margin Bible. It's Zonda R NIV wide margin Bible, and I kind of regretted purchasing this almost immediately. It was a nice wide margin Bible. I couldn't find one that was an ESV version of the Bible, which these days is kind of like my preferred default translation, at least just for reading. So I couldn't find a wide margin one at the time. I decided to settle for this. And ultimately, when I got it, I started using it. I thought that this would be the Bible that I would put. I was planning on making this my apologetics Bible. Like, I have all these books on apologetics and different resources, and I was like, I'm going to put a bunch of notes that have been relevant, that have been important to me from these various apologetics books that I've read into the margins of this Bible, and this will just be kind of like my ultimate Bible for apologetics type stuff. And I ended up not doing that because I just at the end of the day, there was just some things about the NIV translation that were falling short for me, and I'm like, dang it, if I'm going to do this someday, I'd really like to do it, or any kind of, wide margin Bible that I decide to deck out with notes or whatever, I'd really rather it be the ESV or something, or a different translation, maybe the NASB, I don't know. Which I'll get to my summary comments on translations in just a second here. Let's see here. And then the last Bible in my stacks here is the Year Chronological Bible, which I did not... I never used this to get through the Bible in a year chronologically. I bought it actually more for the fact that it was a chronological Bible, and that was interesting to me. Chronological if I'm trying to remember, in the order that things were written, or was it in the order that things take place? I know that it combines the Gospels and tries to order the events according to like when they took place and stuff like that. So its use is fairly limited. I've used this just for the table of like the table of contents, the order that they put the books in. I've used this in cooperation with some other dating resources to determine what order we go through books of the New Testament in our ongoing In Search of Truth Bible study series on the Christian Geek Central podcast and the Christian Geek Central YouTube channel. But other than that, this thing is really just kind of collecting dust these days. It was useful to me for a very brief time when, again, I was kind of trying to figure out how can I build a regular Bible reading habit into my life. This was one Bible that I bought, trying to figure that out. If I didn't mention, it's another New Living Translation, so again, that's a reference to that period of my life. But it's really just up there, mostly collecting dust, and every once in a while I'll refer to it for the way it orders the books of the Bible to kind of have as a supplemental resource as I consider what book we will study next. Oh man, next up I have all these books about sex that I thought we were going to get to, and we're not going to be able to get to them today, so we'll look at that next time. But as far as like translations of the Bible, which translation do I prefer? Well, I don't think that any English translation of the Bible has God's seal of approval for inerrancy. And I have concerns about folks that become really zealous or really convinced that any one translation does have that kind of a nature. What I do, when I'm just kind of casually reading, my default translation that I read these days. This is actually my Bible. This is the one that I typically read out of during my day-to-day quiet time and even my study time. This is where I start because I just realized that at some point there's no study Bible that's going to have in it all the notes that I want. So I'm just going to get a cheap, the kind that you buy in bulk, ESV Bible, paperback, and stuff like that. I'll add tabs to it because my memory for the order of the books of the Bible is terrible. And I'll just use this until it totally falls apart on me. I put packing tape on the front and back after a while to help hold it together and stuff. So this is my default, and then I just use a bunch of different study resources and supplements to help me out. A number that aren't on my bookshelf because they're digital. Like I have the full unabridged Expositor's Bible Commentary, which is like a 12 or 16 volume set, but I have it digitally so I can search things more easily. So my default for reading, and just as a starting point, is the ESV. I find that that's, from the impressions that I get, it's pretty readable, a little stiff sometimes, and it has nice adherence to the original text, I think. But when it comes to like really studying the Bible, I think really what I want to do is go beyond any one English translation. I want to use multiple translations, or I want to get as quickly as I can to lexicons and resources that will get me to the original Greek and Hebrew words. I don't speak or read Greek or Hebrew, and so when I'm preparing the In Search of Truth study, I have a bunch of resources open, including at least one lexicon, and I'm going through and trying to get a sense of the original language meaning as much as I can. So that is my preferred version of the Bible, I guess. All right, that's it for now. Next time, books on sex and a little bit of apologetics and some more about my personal journey of figuring out my own study and quiet time, and a book about marriage that was really valuable to me and Holly in recent years. So more of that on the next installment of the Bookshelf Tour. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. It is time for Extra Life again, and I'd love for you to be a part of it with me. Here's a recycled but slightly modified promo to tell you more. Once again this year, Christian Geek Central is participating in Extra Life. This is a charity that raises funds for the Children's Miracle Network of hospitals, which provides free medical care to children whose families could otherwise not afford it. And this is very often for critical, life-saving treatment. Joining our team only requires a willingness to ask your family and friends to consider donating toward your fundraising efforts. Participants also usually do something fun and game-related to draw attention to their fundraising efforts, like a special game night at your home or your church, or like me, you could do a crazy 24-hour video gaming marathon. Now, I'm theming it around video games, but really this event can be themed around any kind of gaming, which includes both video games and tabletop games of any kind. What you do to raise funds is entirely up to you, but I would love for you to consider joining the Christian Geek Central Extra Life team. As team leader, I'll be there to help answer your questions, provide some helpful tips if I can, and just in general be your fundraising cheerleader and try to draw attention myself to your fundraising efforts. You can get more information about the event as a whole at extra-life.org, and if you choose to sign up there, be sure to select Christian Geek Central as your team so I can get in touch with you and then just help in whatever way I can. Fundraising can begin at any time, but our main push is going to be through the month of October leading up to November 2nd. That's the annual Extra Life Game Day, when I'll be streaming my 24-hour video gaming marathon live and trying to stay awake without throwing up. More details on my live stream as we get closer to it. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.